Let's take them back, yo. Back to the kitchen.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our first meeting of the new year. Happy New Year to all. We're very excited about the meeting we have today. And so we are going to get started. But Happy New Year, and I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, lots of rest, lots of great times with family and friends, and just really hoping that it says 2023, I'm stuck in a time warp. 2024 will be a joyous and a wonderful year for you. I want to move ahead, and I want to just again say we're celebrating the new year, and we're excited to have you in space with us. Our agenda today is, of course, my opening and review of the agenda. We're very excited about hearing from Anacostia's Principal Walker, Anacostia High School, one of the high schools that serve the children of Ward 7. Then we will hear from the Honorable Robert White, the at-large member, the candidate for DC Council for 24 to 24. Then we will also hear from Christina Henderson, the at-large candidate for DC Council. Oh my gosh, a lot of mistakes here, I'm sorry. And then we'll get the SBOE updates from Ebony Rose Thompson. We'll have announcements and we will close out. With that, I want to move quickly to bringing forth our first guest tonight, Principal Walker of Anacostia High School. Mr. Walker, do you need sharing privileges or are you just gonna talk to us tonight?
I'm just gonna talk to you all today.
Okay, so I'm gonna ping you. I'm gonna stop share and I'm gonna ping you. And the floor is yours. So welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Dr. Dean, for allowing me to in the space tonight. My name is Kenneth Walker, the proud principal of Anacostia Senior High School. Just want to come in and share some great things that's happening on 16th Street. One of the things I want to start off with is coming into Anacostia this year. I had the great privilege of being a part of what our students did, a book called Through Anacostia, Through My Eyes of Anacostia, which was an opportunity for our juniors last year to be an internship program with UDC and DOE, and they were working on hydroponics, and they wrote a book about Through the Eyes of Anacostia and working in Kingman Park. They put some poems and things that they saw that were their vision of Anacostia, and which got published this year. They got a lot of publicity from being able to do that. Showed me a lot about what our students here in Anacostia are capable of doing. They've been on TV speaking about their journey through this particular program. It makes me proud to be able to see our kids be able to write a book. And I told them a lot about how being able to write a book shows when you put your vision on paper, anything is capable and anything is happening for you guys. So I've been very excited about that this year. It showed a lot about what they're capable of doing. We have a great program with UDC, and our program with UDC allows for our kids starting in the 9th grade to work their way up to get their associate's degree going into their 12th grade year when they graduate. So we're excited about that particular program. It allows for our kids to want to get an associate's degree and a high school diploma, and also go to UDC for free. So we're working with our kids to get that stamina ready, because when they get into their 11th and 12th grade year, they'll be taking college courses. those that are in the program. So we're really excited about that UDC partnership that we have. It also allows for our families that are part of this particular program to also go to UDC. So any student that is a graduate of Anacostia that goes to UDC, their families as well have an opportunity to go to UDC for free as well. Anybody who graduates from Anacostia and goes to UDC and graduates from UDC gets $10,000. So we have a great program with UDC that we're really, really excited about going into this particular year that I've been able to come on board with Anacostia. Another thing that we're working on is our civil engineering program. We also have Angela Benjamin, who was our CTE director, on board. We started a program, our civil engineering program that we're really excited about to get going, get started. It's another NAF program that we have here at Anacostia. It allows for an opportunity for our kids to have college and career experience early on and start to think and choose what they think they would like to do going in within their 4 years here at Anacostia. And Ms. Benjamin, can you kind of speak on our civil engineering program?
Yes, I can. Hello, everyone. I am the NAF director at Anacostia High School. We have 2 academies currently, the Public Leadership Academy that's been in existence and award-winning for the last 12 years. And well, it became a NAF Academy only about 4 years ago, but the Academy pre-existed NAF. And we have our new Civil and Environmental Engineering and Architecture Academy, where the students engage in work-based learning activities. They work with partnerships with our partners. They build their social capital, and they get experiences with internships and coursework that supports their passions. As Principal Walker was talking, well, let me start first that the program was started through our redesign, and other high schools are in their redesign process now, but Ballou and Anacostia were in the first redesign process. And from that redesign, the people decided that the community decided that they wanted NAF academies and engineering in particular to become available to the students at Anacostia High School. So we've worked hard to grow that program. Currently, we're at about 110 students of the total population of Anacostia High School students. So we're, a significant proportion of the students, and they return every year. They work together. This past summer, 10th and 11th graders worked on creating that, and they worked on the internship, and they created the book that the principal was talking about. We have partnerships with Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, DC Police Foundation, MPD, UDC, of course, the DC Department of Energy and the Environment. We have partnerships with Pepco, Apple Propel, and all of this is supported by UDC. We also have a green program that we're trying to establish, a 3rd academy that will be based on urban sustainability, because we're having a greenhouse that hopefully shall be built by June. We have a hydroponics garden inside the building where we have a group of kids who are working through the mayor's AIP initiative, where they're working to create a business inside the building where the kids will grow and market fresh vegetables, herbs to the community. And perhaps they have a backer that will fund it. So we're still working on that. They might have a backer that will pay for it so that we can give away the food for free, right? But the original plan was to charge and make money for their initiatives inside the school. And we also have a bioretention garden and an outdoor classroom. And our green facilities are so in place. We have a 4-H program. So our kids are really engaged, and we think we'll have that 3rd academy starting up with classes this spring. And then we have the early college program that Principal Walker was talking about, where 9th graders will take all of their high school classes during their 9th and 10th grade year, and then participate at UDC during their 11th and 12th grade year. And we're hoping that that will draw students from across the city to Anacostia so that they can go through that early college experience. So pretty much that's what's going on. We had a STEM's Giving production, career fairs, everything to get the kids to develop the student voice and to help the kids to understand their strengths, their potential, and, you know, just appreciate that they are capable and able to impact their community.
Right, and I would definitely want to piggyback on what Ms. Benjamin said. Our hydroponics has been a great piece that someone very new to. It's in indoor gardening, and it really has tapped into a lot of our students to see how they're able to speak towards it, the fact that they were the ones who really built it, how they maintain it, how they know and how it works. But one of the things I've really liked about this particular program is our internships. Our kids really have an opportunity in the summertime and also in the fall to continue to work on these particular projects. It just gives them the door to be able to work with in government agencies. It gets them used to what a career could begin to look like at an early age between their 10th and 11th grade year. Ms. Benjamin really pushes that and the other teachers to make sure our kids have an opportunity for these internships. And seeing it this year, you can really see how it benefited them because they got a lot of publicity. They got a lot of know-how, people coming and want and see and talk to them about the experience that they had. So I think that is essential for our high school young people to be able to have that opportunity to be able to touch careers early on so that they can be able to figure out where they would like to go down the road and be what they want to be a part of. And then to be able to speak about gardening, is slow living and slow life, I would say, just how you have to nurture the gardens and nurture those things, and to see our young people really nurturing the garden, eating the fruits and the lettuce and eating the herbs and putting in the salads and putting publicity to it and wanting to put together a company, right? They already have their company they're working on, understanding that our area is an urban desert when it comes to food and things of that nature. But where we're located, I think you can't beat it. Right here in Anacostia, right here in Anacostia Park. We have a great partnership with Anacostia Park. We're building on that right now. The fact that we're by water really speaks towards what we're capable of doing and being able to be capable of showing just in urban sustainability. That gets us excited. I'm really big on making sure that our kids going into the 11th and 12th grade year really have an opportunity to touch internships, government jobs, government opportunities, so they can really begin to think about what they want to do, whether that's college or career. One other highlight that we've had this year, as well as our kids have gone down to North Carolina to do a HBC North Carolina HBC college tour in North Carolina. So we're also speaking about college tours with UDC. We also have one coming up with Virginia State. So we want to make sure our kids get an opportunity to touch not only college and career, but have all facets of that. Another thing that we push as a team is making sure that our kids are in a healthy, caring environment and being able to have relationship with adults. Ms. Benjamin, when I say just to speak on some of the things that she does, it just trickles down to all the other adults in the building itself. To have our kids prepared consistently to be able to present in front of adults they don't know. We've been really tapped into UDC where they've been able to come and showcase what we're doing to other colleges. We've had colleges come in this year from across the world, across the United States, to see what the partnership that UDC and Anacostia had. And our kids are the ones speaking on the partnership, not myself or Ms. Benjamin, but it's our kids speaking on it, being prepped by Ms. Benjamin of what they've done. They're being highlighted the things that they've done. So we really take that seriously down here at Anacostia to make sure our kids have the opportunity to have these internships and have an opportunity to be exposed to multiple different things that allow for them to be successful. And then in charge in the classroom, our teachers are ones who are here on a consistent basis, really loving on our kids, and we take pride into what our scores are and continue to try to grow our kids in different areas today. Like today we had a town hall meeting to get our kids pumped up about our reading test coming up, to speak about how important it is to make sure we're taking some of these tests seriously, because we know a lot of times kids don't always know how important the test could be and they don't take them seriously, so they come across the name. So we want to make sure that our kids are understanding of what's coming down the horizon, what they can be able to do in order to be successful, and making sure that they have an opportunity just to be kids and govern themselves and kids as teenagers. So we've had a lot of great things in the month of December. I'm a little old school, so I was excited. We had a go-go band coming in last month. I was excited to see that. They didn't do too much dancing, but I was just trying to get them exposed to those things that are very tending to the district area, making sure they're very knowledgeable about that. We had an opportunity. A lot of our kids went to main event. Those kids who had great attendance. So I want to always expose our kids, just making them see that when they have an opportunity to be successful, that they're being loved upon, that they have a voice in the building. We're really gauging our kids with our SGA to make sure they have a voice about what they see and what they would like to see our community be about, and be so that they can be able to be exposed and have their vision as well. Because we as adults, a lot of times we might have a vision of things that the kids want to do. And it can be almost the exact same thing that they want to do. But if they're not the ones voicing what they want to do, they'll sit back and let us sit back and watch it. So I'm big on making sure that the kids have a voice of what they want to be able to do so that we can put these things in place for them to be successful. So that's where we are right now, Anacostia. I'm very excited about what we can do. Like I said, I'm very excited about our UDC program, very excited about our civil engineering program, about recruiting more kids in our community to come on down to Anacostia to make sure that they're part of what we're capable of doing here on 16th Street.
And I'd just like to add a little bit about the business that we're talking about that our kids are established. They had the name of it is the 16th Street Greens out of the Anacostia Greenhouse. We're preparing our kids to be advocates for social justice and environmental justice. And so being like Principal Walker said, we're right across the street from the Anacostia River, and we want our kids to be in that park, in their community, speaking about what they think is important. And I just want to add that is our focal point, and we really appreciate the opportunity and the courage of our kids to just get out there and do what they need to do.
Well, thank you. Before we open up to a few questions, I just have, I come from education, so I know we use a lot of acronyms and EduSpeak. What is NAF? I know what it is, but you said NAF a lot. So what does it stand for, NAF?
Well, they're moving away from the initials. The original initials meant the National Academies Foundation.
Yeah.
Right. So they support career tech ed across the nation, and they have programs in computer engineering, business and finance, public leadership, just various programs, finance that they support, and that they try to serve an underserved population. Mm-hmm. And the work-based learning, internships, and exposure to careers is the backbone of the National Academies Foundation.
Thank you. I just wanted people to be aware of what it is and what it stands for. Principal Walker, really excited to hear about all the work you've done. I participated under the leadership of the previous principal in some of the work around the redesign. It's always great to hear how people take it to the next level. And you definitely have done that. So if there are any questions if we could have our participants put them in the chat, we'll ask a few questions. I also am so excited about the students going into business, and I know you're looking for potential funding, but I'm also suggesting that you might want to talk to some of the bigger organizations that are in this space, nonprofits, and see if there is potential partnership they can do with you that could provide funding. We always think about foundations, but a lot of nonprofits actually give out smaller grants too. So just want you to be aware of that. DC Greens, DC Central Kitchen, Dreaming Out Loud, and the Capital Area Food Bank are four that came to my mind right off the top of my head as potential people to reach out to see if they are willing to support the work of the young people. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Xavier Brown, who is our representative and ambassador from UDC, has been plugged into DC in the green spaces and urban sustainability for several years, and he outreaches to a lot of those organizations. So thank you for giving us that information.
Right, and they already have strong relationships with foundations, and they might be willing to even, approach them about a smaller grant to support your work. So just giving you some ideas of how to support it. Are there any other questions from the chat, from the presentation from Anacostia High School? We're really excited. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we appreciate you coming. We appreciate you telling us about Anacostia. Principal Walker, what is one thing that you really want people to understand about Anacostia that is either misunderstood or people have a perception that just simply is not true? Correct the record for anyone who might be thinking that Anacostia is something that it's not. So let us know that about, like, speak from your heart. Tell us who Anacostia is. Correct the record.
Anacostia is a safe school. It's a safe, caring, loving school. It's a small school, but we really have an opportunity where classrooms allow for teachers to get to know our students very well. We've put together a lot of programs, really big on, like I said, internships, and allow for our kids to be successful any way they can possible. We really try to meet kids where they are, right? And our families where they are. But it's a safe school. We are really big on making sure kids have an opportunity to have town halls where we discuss things and put them in places where they can get to know one another. I think it's really big for our young people just to get to know one another, understand their similarities, and that our differences are not so far from each other. So we put ourselves in situations where they do a lot of bonding and norming on a consistent basis. We've done a lot of things where they're together more often than they're not. And they've done sessions together. I know we have a great thing with Access Youth. They do a lot of sessions with kids. We do sessions with kids. We definitely try to make sure that that mental health piece is there. So Anacostia is a safe school. I think we are really trying to embody that Frederick Douglass feel. I mean, because we are Frederick Douglass home. So we're change makers, we're change agents over here. So I'm excited. I just think that it's just that narrative can be what it's going to be. But we just got to keep hitting the ground running and making sure that our kids can be able to promote what's happening positive at Anacostia and making sure those things are consistently out there. And this year, what I can say is it's been out there. Our kids have made sure that the great things that's happening in Anacostia has happened. And we had a kid this year who saved a young lady in the fire that hit the news. So just making sure these positive things that's happening with our young people, that other people can have an opportunity to hear. So we're definitely on the thrive to make sure that all the positive things that's happening are there, and that you're welcome to come down there and see. It's like I said, it's an antique building. We're old, but we love who we are. We can't beat it. We're historic. One of the oldest schools in the district. So we try to take pride in who we are. We take pride in Anacostia. Like I said, I'm a Marylandtonian. I say because I'm born in D.C. My family is deep rooted in D.C., but I lived in Maryland. So I know that side of town very well. So I'm very familiar with 16th Street. My cousin lived over there for a very long time as a youngster. So it is a very, very prideful area. So we want to instill that into our young people as well, that they are in a great school, that the key teachers and love who they are, that they have a their intentions are well thought of, and making sure those things are in the forefront of what we do. And like I said, I'm really big on student voice because they know what they know best. Hearing them and then crafting that as an adult in the building. How can we craft it so that it's safe and it's healthy for you all, that allows for you all to be successful? Just hearing their voice and they have a voice at the table gets me excited, and making sure that we can also steer them in the right direction. So no, Anacostia is a great school.
So thank you. And I dream of a world where the people will know that our schools are safe, and we don't have to lead with that, because I'm in the schools, and I just dream of that world. So yes, so anyway, I'm getting a text, but I just want to say thank you much. There is a message in the chat that talks about a scholarship that the Hillcrest Community Association provides to students, graduating seniors. Please check that out.
Write it down now. Yeah.
So, hold on one second. Just sending this to our next guest. He's trying to make sure oh, here he is. He's here. Okay. So writing that down, you can go to hillcrestdc.org and find out more information. I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for you coming to speak to us. We appreciate you and all the hard work that you and your team does. Is Coach Tom still there? Principal Walker?
Say it again, I can't hear you.
Is Coach Thomas still there?
Yes, he is. Dean Thomas, yes, he's still here. Yes, he is. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
Dean
yes,
Thomas,
yes.
would you tell
Yeah.
him Marla Dean said hello?
I
Okay.
will. I'll
Okay.
definitely do that. I'll definitely do
Okay,
that.
thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. You all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have a good
All
one
right.
and a good rest of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, just want to reiterate where we are in our program. So we have had our opening. We've heard from Anacostia's principal, Mr. Walker, and we're about to engage in our first conversation with the Honorable Robert White, at-large candidate for DC Council. And so really want to bring him forward. I am going to hand you. Thank you, council member, for being with us. And I know you were rushing from one place to another. Your team was keeping me very much abreast of your ETA. So if you are ready and have taken a deep breath, I just have a few questions for you. I want to again express to our audience here that this is not a debate, this is not a forum, it's just questions to get some general understanding of where you are on some education issues. We appreciate your time. This is also on YouTube, so people can check there. But we are going to begin. So welcome and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year. Glad to be with you.
Okay, excellent. So why are you running again for re-election for the at-large member of the DC Council?
What last year showed me more than any other year before is how much of an impact I can have and the council can have. But this is a particularly important time for our city. This is the city that I grew up in. This is the city that I love. This is the city that I chose to serve. We're at a really pivotal point in our history. I grew up in the 80s and 90s when this city was struggling economically, struggling with services, struggling with population growth, struggling with crime. And I've lived through some of the best years that our city has seen, but I'm seeing us revert back to the types of things I saw in the 80s and 90s. And when things are tough, the people who are hit the hardest are the people who already have the least. It's folks like my own family. And so when I thought about running for re-election, I thought about the things and the voices and perspectives that we need in government right now. We need the perspectives of people who are going to fight for our communities and our schools. We need the perspective of somebody who knows how important education is, because it is the one distinguishing factor between me and the rest of the folks in my family, who most of them are much smarter than me. And we need folks who understand that we have to chart a clear course for where we need to go and how pivotal education is in getting there, because there's a direct connection between education and poverty, education and health outcomes, education and life opportunities, education and crime. It is the one thing that is connected to everything that we do and will see in our city. So I'm really excited, coming off my most productive year as a council member. Just significant changes in housing and homeless services, a lot more to do, but I'm moving into this re-election really excited about possibilities.
Thank you. So you started to talk about what distinguishes you from the rest of the field or the anticipated field. Can you talk a little bit more about what distinguishes you from the field?
Yeah, the most important thing is the ability to get things done and the ability to create a clear vision and execute on that vision. So that's what my track record is. When I got elected in my first term, I developed a list of priorities that I said I was going to execute on. Some of them were related to education, some related to employment, some related to returning citizens. I said what I was going to do in the first couple of months I came into office, and in my first term, I got all of those things done. In my second term, the city was put on our heels with respect to COVID. That's when I became a strong advocacy voice for our schools, for people who were being left behind, for people who were struggling economically. And as we have emerged from COVID, it has allowed me to go back to setting affirmative agendas. So this time last year, I was just starting out reforming the DC Housing Authority, public housing. Last year, I reformed their entire board, reformed their leadership structure, new executive director, new leadership, and I reformed their funding, getting about $80 million a year starting in 2028 dedicated for public housing. We've reformed the office of the ANC. We've expanded that office. We got a new director who understands what the mandate is, what commissioners need, who is committed to executing those things. We've got tens of millions of dollars for emergency rental assistance. We've gone to bat and battled over SNAP and that ERAP money. So we're coming off of a year where what distinguishes me from anybody who is running or will run is a track record that is clearly focused on people and communities, that has a clear record of getting things done, from early childhood education to creating a free master's in social work program to introducing the most supported public safety bill that we have in our city right now. So I know where I'm going. I know who I'm fighting for. I know how to get things done. And I hope people know that I'm fighting for them. And those are important distinguishing factors. I'm not just talking about what other folks are doing wrong. I'm not just talking about what I'm going to do. I'm talking about what I have done. I'm talking about my vision for the future. And I'm going out and executing that thing for our residents.
Thank you, council member. So what experience do you have with education and education policy in particular?
Education is particularly important to me for two foundational reasons. One, I'm a dad. My first daughter, Madison, was born 2 weeks after I won my primary. That's why I focused in my first term so much on early childhood education. But also personally, I'm a guy who was a failing student most of my academic career. From third grade until my junior year of high school, I failed every single grade. I managed to get my act together my junior year, went to college, studied abroad in 3 continents, went to law school, went to work on Capitol Hill. But goes back to what I was saying earlier, the distinguishing factor between me and other members of my family is not intellect. My family is smart folks who happen to not have the academic opportunities that I had. So when I look at young people in this city and I see what I have done as somebody who is not particularly special, I see a city full of young people that with the right opportunities can do so much more than I've ever done, but it's my job to help make sure they have those opportunities. That is why I've taken the time and care since I've been on the council to understand our education policy, to understand the science behind education, how the brain is developing in those early years from 0 to 3. How important that brain development is and the synapse that develop during that time to the future of those young people. And that's why I focus so much on attracting and retaining talented teachers, going to bat for our teachers, understanding in a real way what challenges we're having in our schools and classrooms, and then working to address those challenges. So I have a teacher retention bill. Then we've gotten some of the aspects of that bill passed. We had a hearing on that bill. I've done early childhood education bill, the bill that goes beyond anything else you've seen in the country that I worked on with Councilmember Gray. And I focused on adult education last year, creating a free master's in social work program, but also working to create incentives to help adults who have fallen through the cracks, either for adult literacy programs or they fell out of college and need a new opportunity, trying to create those opportunities through our local university. So I focus on early childhood education, K through 12, adult education, career and technical education. I've focused on the gamut, and I will continue to have education as one of my key priorities because it is so pivotal to everything that we do.
Thank you. So what is specifically your education platform in your upcoming election?
So we are going to keep our best and brightest teachers. That's something that the district has not done. We don't need a lot of education related bills. We need to focus on the key aspects of education. Right now, I think the key thing that we are missing is keeping our teachers. Teachers are leaving DC classrooms in droves. Now, teachers are leaving across the country, but they're leaving at a higher percentage from DC. Part of that is the impact evaluation for teachers. Part of that is the lack of supports that we give to teachers. I believe that the model we use for managing teachers is not a little outdated, it's decades outdated. This kind of command and control management model, not letting teachers have any input into their own evaluation system. These are just systems that are used almost nowhere in the private sector, not even used in most parts of government. But for some reason, we still use these really antiquated, demeaning management tools for our teachers. We need to support our teachers, encourage our teachers, pay our teachers, and listen to our teachers. So when I developed legislation, whether it was the early childhood education legislation or teacher retention legislation, these things don't come from my brain. They don't come from advocates. These things come from teachers and educators themselves. So going into this next term, my key priority in my platform, key priority in my council work is retaining teachers, which means listening to the things that they need. I'm also focused on, from the student perspective, and this very much impacts teachers, student mental health. I have focused a lot over the past several years on mental health. I really applaud our young people who are talking more about and engaging more in mental health and therapy than generations before them. But these are young people who have lived through something that none of us have lived through as young people. The trauma from COVID is real. The issues that they're facing are real. And the challenges that they are having as young people are different than the challenges we had as young people. So we need to be listening to those young people, but also providing the mental health supports that they need in order to stay in school, in order to deal with the stresses of life, in order to fully recover from a very traumatic pandemic. So keeping our teachers on one side, focusing on the mental health of students on the other side. Those are the key things that I think are going to help us move ahead. There are a lot of other things we need to do, but I think we always need to be clear about what are the factors that influence other factors. And those are the two that I think are most important right now.
Speaking of students, I do want to let everyone know that Crystal Mitchell is on this call. She is she's actually my intern through the IC intern program, and she's a HD Woodson student. So I don't know if Crystal will come off and show her face, but I just think that we should acknowledge when students are in our space. So, and she's phenomenal. So just wanted to put that out there. It's a pleasure to work with Crystal. And my final question for you, council member, is with mayoral control, council members actually have a limited power or authority over education in the district. So how do you plan to effectuate your education platform?
The same way that I have in the past. So we need to engage and organize with educators. I can use the power and platform of my office to uplift their perspectives, and where necessary, we can force change, but that does require more than one council member. So for instance, what we accomplished in the early childhood education space, while we still have a ways to go, we are seeing the early stages of pay parity for our early childhood educators. This is a priority that came not from the mayor, but from the council. Having a hearing, and starting to move things forward on teacher retention. Shout out to Empower Ed, who did surveys, who brought to the council the things that teachers were saying that they need in order to stay in a classroom. We now have flexible scheduling pilots running in our classrooms. Again, this was not a priority of the administration. This was a priority of the council. So really working with my colleagues on the council to try to have a more cohesive voice on education that gives us more power, making sure that we as a body are listening to educators and listening to parents to make sure that their priorities are our priorities, we can push these issues. While we don't control the school, remember, we don't control most other agencies either, but there's a lot we can get done through legislation, through oversight, and through public pressure. But we've got to be clear about where we're going. We've got to prioritize teachers and families, and the council has to, as much as possible, work cohesively.
So thank you, Councilmember White, for coming to the Ward 7 Education Council 24 for 24. You did that in a remarkable, efficient amount of time. We appreciate you, and we'll look for you throughout the ward as people learn more about you and the work that you're doing. Any closing remark you want to give?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, I try not to be a long-winded politician. I try to let my work speak for itself. I want to thank you for having me. Thank you for the work that you all are doing. And also, just because this is always top of mind, the issue, education has always been one of the key priorities for our city. Public safety is now as well. And this is something that does impact our young people. So my parting remark is that I am very much focused on public safety, both from a standpoint of how do we respond better and more effectively so that we can cut down quickly on the crime we're seeing. I have a bill that I think will get us there more quickly than anything else that I've seen, but expect to see from me in the coming weeks a bill focused on prevention and really focused on young people, where you're going to see a lot of focus on career and technical education, mentoring, and tutoring. So more to come on the public safety front, because we've got to keep our kids safe.
So as you leave, you didn't get to hear the presentation from Anacostia High School, the principal, but he talked about many of those issues around career technical education, having a welcoming environment for young people where they feel safe and connected. So we look forward to hearing more about your bill. Again, and I also saw Scott from Empower Ed come in at some point. So, and I know you mentioned Empower Ed. So thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
You too. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. So as we are a little ahead of time, I am going to try and remove the pen, first of all. And I'm going to go back to our schedule, and we're going to make a modification. I'm going to make some announcements. And when we see the council member Henderson come in, we'll quickly divert to her. With that being said, let's go back to the council member. Oh, well, we don't have to wait. She's here. But I do want to give her a moment to get settled, even though she's here. I want her to come in and hit the ground running. With that, I'm going to do some announcements to give Councilmember Henderson time to get settled. Welcome, Council Member, as you come in. We'll hear from our state board rep later on in the meeting. Ebony Rose Thompson, she's the state board president, Ward 7 rep. We want to continue to advocate for a community representative for Eastern's High School LSAT. Eastern High School is now in Ward 7, so we work closely with Eastern also. They meet on the first Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m. and the meetings last 1 hour and they are virtual. We continue to ask members of Ward 7 Council and guests to sign up for the various committees. We want to be able to reach out to you. If you, here's my email address to contact me for all things education. If you're interested in one of the committees, please reach out through Marla M. Dean, Ward7@gmail. The 2023-24 Advisory Committee on Student Assignments. We only have one meeting left. That's the January 10th meeting that is happening next week. And we'll be starting to issue our recommendations shortly. Please make sure you can go to the Deputy Mayor of Education's website to get the link and to view those meetings, not only the one on the 10th, but all the ones that have occurred. We have been meeting almost close to a year now. Just want to remind you that DC Action has parent trainings on budget oversight and council oversight and budget oversight for the council. You can scan this QR code, get hooked up with them, linked with them, so that you can know how to testify at the hearings and the like. Don't forget that the Ward 7 Education Council is on YouTube. All of our meetings are there, and so you can go there for any meeting that we have and get information and find out what we've been up to. With that, we are not adjourning. I want to go back to Council Member Henderson and thank you for being not just timely, but early, because you are early. So we want to thank you. I just will pin you. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to pin you. And I want to first say Happy New Year to you. And I hope that—
Happy New Year.
Yes, I hope you had some rest and lots of joy during the holiday season. With that, we're going to get right started. I want to remind everyone that this is not a debate or a forum. This is just a conversation. I ask some questions and we just get to hear about the council members' views on education. And we're going to start with Council Member Henderson. Why are you running again for at-large council member for the DC Council?
Well, thank you so much, Marla, for the invitation, and good evening, everyone. I always like to say for folks who you worked a full day and then you join a community meeting at night. So that's like a second day that you're working. And I'm sure that many of you also have kids and other things as well. And so I appreciate your engagement on these issues. But why am I running for re-election? I tell you, there are some days that I'm like, why am I running for re-election? This job is not easy, but it's also one of the best jobs that I've ever had. When I ran for office 4 years ago, I ran because I believed that one zip code should not determine your opportunity for success, and that everyone deserved an opportunity on that front. And unfortunately, even though, I've been working each and every day to try to make that a reality, we're still not there yet. So I'm running for re-election because I feel like we have unfinished business on a variety of fronts to get done. And I'm hopeful that voters will give me the opportunity to continue some of the very good work that we have been doing on behalf of residents of the district for the past 3 years.
Thank you. So what distinguishes you from the field or the anticipated field?
Well, I would say probably the biggest one is experience, but frankly, that was the same thing that distinguished me last time. Having worked for the council for 4 years, having worked on Capitol Hill for 6 years, and then now having 3 years as a council member under my belt, it really helps in terms of getting things done. working with people, knowing who to call on even just some of the most random of things that come up, but also recognizing how the process works in order to be able to advance an agenda forward. I think the, um, you know, most recent example of this is around the Give Snapper Raise um, fight that we had been having for the last few weeks with the mayor's office, and that being reversed just last night. I think that takes the ability to know, number one, how to craft really good policy, and number two, how to craft it in a way that ensures implementation with fidelity. So I think what makes me stand apart is the fact that I know how to get things done.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So what experience do you have with education or education policy in particular?
That's a great question. Especially when I think back to the idea that I've been working on education or working or researching and thinking about education for the last 15 years in some way, shape, or form, but I've never actually been a teacher. And until 4 years ago, I wasn't a parent either. So I was sort of experiencing it from the outside. And so now having that opportunity to do something a little bit different. So I've done some consultancy work for some state boards of education, as well as some local school boards. A lot of people always complain about some of the processes that we have here in the district. And I could describe to you what some of the other jurisdictions around the country are facing in terms of, one, participation, but two, what their process looks like. For instance, I was a consultant for a local school board in New Jersey. And in New Jersey, the school budget has to also be passed by the town. That's right. It's a separate, like it's a line item on an election. And often what they would have happen is that as a town got older and folks no longer had kids in the system, all of a sudden, why are we spending all of this money on those kids? And so, that's something that I worked on. I did a stint at the New York City Department of Education. I worked in their charter schools office at a time where things were very, very hot in New York City. Several lawsuits around co-location and other things. I did a stint at DC Public Schools. I worked in the Office of Human Capital when it was called that, on teacher and school leader retention efforts and some other things. When I worked at the council, I spent 2 years working for Councilmember David Grasso, and then he became chair of the Committee on Education. I was the committee director for the Committee on Education for 2 years. When I left the council and went back to Capitol Hill, I worked for now Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and part of my portfolio was education. A lot of that, though, focused a lot on higher education, just and simply because the federal government hadn't been spending a lot of time at that point really focused on K-12. And so I think a wide array of experiences in the education field. And I try to work on issues across the spectrum, from early childhood to post-secondary.
Thank you. So what would you say is your education platform for this upcoming election?
Well, I think that when you say the education platform, there are just some areas that I want to continue working on, where, I see that we need some additional supports, but also just some common sense efforts around a variety of things. So, for instance, I'll start with the littles. I think early educator pay equity is super important. I think early childhood educators make it possible for literally America to go to work. And after the pandemic, I thought that it was important that they got a raise. We got that done. And I worked on that effort to establish the pay equity fund, to establish the task force, to decide what the scale was. I worked with OSSI very closely with the superintendent to make sure that this got implemented on time. I was like, the checks have to go out. Also then working with the Health Benefit Exchange to do some innovative things around healthcare for childcare. So we have now thousands of individuals who are now having access to health insurance for the first time as an early childhood educator. There's still more work to be done on that front. We made it a promise that we wanted to incorporate experience into the scale. So there's still some more work that we have to do there and around credentialing and some other things. So I want to that is part of something that I want to focus on in the next 4 years. Educator and principal retention is also an important thing as well. When I worked on Capitol Hill the second time, I worked a lot on trying to fix the public service loan forgiveness program. And while that is certainly available on the federal side, many jurisdictions have local versions of that program, but we don't have one here in the District of Columbia. Now, I know that we can't afford to like cancel everybody's loans, and that may not be what we're trying to do on the local side, but we can help you make the payments while you're working towards true loan forgiveness from the federal government. And in fact, this is something that happens on Capitol Hill with congressional staffers and even in the Wilson building. So I introduced legislation on student loan repayment for educators, but I've also seen other school districts be more innovative in this area, especially in the area around housing, which I think is super important. I think it's important for educators to be able to live and work in the communities for which they're serving the kids. It contributes to burnout, I imagine, if you have a 45 to 1 hour commute one way just to get to work. And so how can we help make sure that folks are able to afford to live in the city? So educator and principal retention is super important to me. Another issue that's super important to me that I want to continue working on is out of school time. I worked on legislation with some parents to make sure that out of school time opportunities were accessible to all students. And by I say all students, I mean making it accessible to families, to students who have special needs, because that is a student population group that is largely left out of the out of school time conversation now. Like if we think about it, yes, we have federal laws around inclusion in ADA, but we don't have any guidance that we provide to providers now around how they should work to include those young people in their programming or provide any technical assistance if there's any special equipment that's necessary in order for them to participate. And as a result, I got families who never have summer care options available to them because no provider is able to provide care for their young people. So that's something that we've been working on with the Committee of the Whole, and I want to continue to push on that. In addition, I think we need to focus on how out of school time operates. I joke that on January 1, nothing says Happy New Year like waking up first thing on January 1st trying to sign your kid up for summer camp. I think signing up for summer camp or after school or seasonal programming shouldn't feel like the Hunger Games year after year. And, I worked with DPR to launch the summer camp lottery process. Last year was the first year. We're going to work out the kinks. In fact, it's going to be starting earlier this year. But I feel like, again, processes, what are we doing? Do we have enough slots? Do we have enough the ability to be able to expand? These are smaller, it's not a new program. I just feel like the stuff that we have isn't working as best as it can for DC residents across the city. And then finally, a new thing, though, that I want to work on is I think we need to focus on out of school time for older students. Oftentimes I hear from high school and middle school kids say they're forced to leave the building by 3:30. And I know if I look at the data from MPD and others, that the times where we're seeing our spikes in crime are from 3:30 to 7 o'clock. So that tells me that I need to figure out what to do with some of these young people who have a little bit more time on their hands. So what does out of school time look like for them? We do out of school time very well for pre-K through 5. And then once you become a 6th grader, it's like, good luck to you. And so how can we be more creative and innovative in that? How can we provide more funding to LEAs to be able to provide admin premiums? So more teachers in those grade groups decide to stay after school, whether do clubs or other things, or, some kids, they're not into sports. They just want to hang out in the library or use the computers. How can we just make that happen and make it such that schools can be a community safe space for all? I focus on student supports a lot. I chair the health committee, so school-based behavioral health is super important. Making sure lunches are available and edible. That part is super important. So I've introduced legislation around universal free school meals. And in my capacity as sort of in the health director or health committee chair, also working on school nurses. We in fact just had a hearing on that today. So when I think about student supports, it supports outside of the classroom that make it possible for children to sit down and focus on what's happening in front of them. Good governance. So that's just common sense types of things. I I feel like sometimes our school system makes it really difficult when things can be ever so simple. I had to introduce a bill on home and hospital instruction to just literally say that if you're a pregnant student who gives birth, you can get home and hospital instruction in the postpartum period. We shouldn't have had to introduce legislation for that. That is common sense to me. That is something that we could have done regulation wise. And I want to continue to push the education cluster on some of these moves. They're just things that come up that it's just like we're making it so difficult for families, and it doesn't even need to be that way. And then finally, in terms of the platform, focusing on post-secondary success, which I talked about. DC Tag doesn't have the purchasing power that it once did, although no one ever wants to touch DC Tag, but I feel like it's a conversation that we need to have, especially as college prices are continuing to rise. I've introduced legislation around FAFSA because I don't like leaving federal dollars on the table. And I want to make sure that every young person, whether you're seeking a certificate, a 2-year credential, et cetera, let's go to college for free. Let's get these degrees for free. But you can't do that if you don't even fill out the information. I've also introduced bills around college athletics and NIL, name, image, likeness, as well as college sexual assault. So we have a lot of colleges and universities here in the district. They are some of our largest employers behind our hospital systems. And although they are private institutions, I don't think that absolves them from the responsibility to make sure that they're living up to DC values and in that taking care of the students in their care. So that was a lot. I hope I'm staying within my time.
No, you're okay. But you talked about students, and whenever someone brings up the student, I just want to bring up that we have a student. She's actually my intern. She is a student at HD Woodson. Her name is Crystal Mitchell. She will not come off on camera to be seen, but it's a pleasure working with her, and I just want people to know about the phenomenal Ward 7 students we have. So my last question for you is with mayoral control, council members actually have limited power or authority over education in the district. So how do you plan to effectuate your education platform?
I think in a lot of ways, it is working on the things that are within our control. I've never been one to think that it is appropriate for council members to legislate curriculum. None of my colleagues, I'm thinking, yeah, Mary's gone. None of my colleagues are teachers anymore. Zachary Parker, I was involved in that, right? None of them have the expertise to be able to dictate those types of determinations. None of them have ever been principals in a building who have had to do scheduling and all of those pieces, right? But I think the responsibility of the council is to ensure that our LEAs have what they need to be successful, and to deliver high quality education to all of our young people. And that also families feel like they have a seat at the table and are engaged in the process. And so I work in that, number one, when it comes to education, not everything has to be legislated. There's a lot of things that we can get done through conversations. Sometimes we do have to move to legislation. But I think that, again, working in the areas of the things that we can control. I was listening as you were sort of giving out the announcements. In this, let's take the school boundary process, for example. I was working at the council the last time we revised the school boundary assignments. It had been 50 years since we'd done it last. And, when I get on the council, I realized like nobody was planning to do this again. Instead, we would be willing to pay millions of dollars to put an extension on an elementary school as opposed to just change the lines when you have 2 elementary schools that are 4 blocks from each other. We did not want to have those difficult conversations with communities about that. And as a result, we're wasting money and time and process. And so I introduced legislation to say, no, we're going to do this every 10 years, even if it's tough, even if it's hard, because it is part of the process And also it ensures that we don't go 50 years and have the convoluted lines that we once had before, right? This is part of the good governance piece. And it's something that is within my control. I think that, we are able to fund various programs that are helpful. And again, providing supports that are necessary. Last year, I went sort of in this very deep dive around literacy after listening to how we were teaching young people how to read. But even before that, I felt that like as a city, we said we had a goal on literacy instruction, and yet we weren't spending any money on literacy instruction or literacy training. How are we teaching teachers how to teach kids how to actually read? So we do grant funding around that, and we are able to sort of push in that way. I don't think that mayoral control is this limiting factor that doesn't allow for anyone to impact or touch education. You have to figure out how to do it in the right way. Furthermore, mayoral control does not limit oversight. In fact, it demands more of it. And that's something that I have tried to stay focused on. Folks who know I come to meetings prepared. I usually have read and I have questions upon questions and some follow-up questions thereafter, because I feel like that is in part of my role. I don't think that oversight needs to be adversarial. It can be sometimes, but it doesn't need to be. We're all just trying to get to the best place for residents involved. And so I'm committed to continuing that work if I'm so lucky to be elected again.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Henderson. We appreciate you coming to the Ward 7 Education Council. We know that you are a mom, so you're getting ready to do your second part of your duty of your job, and we just say thank you again. We look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail and continuing to learn more about the work that you're doing for the residents of DC. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
I missed something.
Oh.
Is there anything you want to say in closing? I forgot to say that. I should want to make sure that I'm being consistent. So is there anything you want to say in closing?
Well, I would say a couple of things. So first off, thank you again for inviting me. My website is ChristinaHenderson.org. So folks can go up there to sign up, learn more information about the campaign and how they can get involved if you like what you heard. But also just my other general PSA, we are about to enter performance oversight season. And I know that one of the complaints of the public and the frustrations of everyone is that the committee of the whole would only do one day of public witness testimony for all the education folks. And for the last 3 years, I have been going to bat, which for y'all out here in these streets. And I was successful in getting an additional day. So I hope that I'm mentioning this because performance oversight hearings technically start in a week and a half. And so I think folks should just pay attention and get signed up for those.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us about that important part of the process, and we want people tuned into that. So with that, now officially, I will say have a good evening, and we look forward to seeing you out there and learning more about you. So have a good rest of your evening. Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. So we are really excited about hearing from our at-large council member candidates. I'm going to remove the pen. And now I want to, we already went through most of our announcements, so we're doing well this evening. I want to bring forward our state board rep and state board president, Ebony Rose Thompson, to provide updates regarding the state board. I'm going to pin you and let me stop the share so that you can be actually pinned.
Good evening. If we have not met, and I see a lot of people that I have met, but if we have not met, my name is Ebony Rose Thompson. I do represent Ward 7 on the State Board of Education. I also serve as the president of the board. Fortunately, the way the calendar is working this month, is that we are fresh off our working session last night. So it's a really good time to give updates about what's coming up this month. We always have our working session on the first Wednesday of the month, and our public meeting is always the third Wednesday of the month. A few things, we had a very long meeting last night, unlike the Ed Council meeting, which sounds like it's going to be over at 8 p.m. We had a presentation for the Deputy Mayor for Education on 3 processes that are currently happening. One being the boundary and assignment study, 2 being the master facilities plan, and 3 being the adequacy study. I think the DME's office largely did a good job of giving an overview of what the processes were. So if you're like, I don't know, I hope nobody's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Ebony Rose, but if you're like, I've not heard anything about this, you are welcome to go and watch our recording to get a quick briefing on those 3 processes. There are also a few more meetings happening. Like I know the minor PTO has DME coming out. So if you have specific things about specific schools, please do connect with me. They are still taking feedback. The committee has not yet finalized its recommendations, and I'm really encouraging people to lean in and engage. I did write something for East of the River paper about Sousa and like the potential for that to be not just like moved up on the modernization list, but how we should be thinking about that, how we should be thinking about this as an opportunity for investment. And this is really a time for everything to be on the table. I will make sure to put the links to that because on the virtual the online version is up. I'll make sure to put the link to that in the chat. So that's one thing. 2, on January 16th, which is the day before our meeting, we will be doing a legislative briefing and it's open to the public, but at the Wilson Building around work we've had around healthy school facilities. We are doing this now because the master facilities plan gets delivered to the council, and we're hoping that we can work with the council to establish a shared definition for what is a healthy, safe, and educationally appropriate school facility across all of our schools. That is not something we actually have in the district, which is really unfortunate. And for us as Ward 7, which has both traditional public and charter schools, we need kind of some foundation. Like we really need we talk about the bright spots, so we really need a floor for facilities. So if you are interested in that work, and we're making sure to brief the council because the facilities plan gets delivered to the council, and have been working with DME, that is an open invitation. And again, that will be January 16th, 2 p.m. At the Wilson Building. So those are some things coming up from the board outside of our responsibilities. The big things that we are voting on coming up in January, excuse me, not in January, but we have coming up votes for, and you should be paying attention to, our work around the DC school report card. We did get an update from OSSI last night. I actually expect more materials to be coming soon that help the public understand what we will be voting on. If you still would like to engage in that work, it is not too late. You can register, show up, testify at our January meeting because we are not scheduled to vote on that until February. So it is not too late for you to engage, and all of those materials are posted on our website. We also have resolutions around a Green New Deal for schools, which was actually brought to us by young people. Happy to talk to people about that at another time because I know the update's getting a little bit long. We have a resolution around a change to the parental leave policy to make it mirror for both, like if you are a father, that you get the same leave supports as mothers get. So like that way the mom isn't going to the appointment by themselves, right? Like those types of things. So we have a resolution on that. And then we also have a resolution establishing a citywide contest for voter registration in high schools. So those are the 3 things that we will be voting on, in addition to a resolution to extend the appointment for the interim ombudsman. I'm telling you that because we are currently hiring for the ombudsman. We hope to have a new ombudsman appointed sometime between February and March. That is really important for Ward 7 because the ombudsman does a lot of case management work around education. And we want to make sure those services continue for our families. So those are, I think, my board updates. I will be sending out pretty soon, like a wrap up. I normally do an annual report as an individual. We'll also do our annual report as the board. Happy to talk to people about budget and oversight as we get into that. And have a few testimonies that'll be in my newsletter update because I'm pretty busy. I testified at the school nurses thing today. And so lots going on at the board and the council level, but that is my update. So I'll put a couple of things in the chat, including my contact information if you would like to connect with me. And, appreciate the time as always.
So thank you, Representative Ebony Rose Thompson, for those updates. We'll wait to make sure that those get put in the chat so that people can collect those. And we are doing great this evening in terms of time. So we appreciate how clear and concise everyone has been this evening. And again, we heard about budget oversight and budget hearings that will be coming up. We really want to make sure that everyone knows how to get training in preparation from this. We heard that from council members. We heard it from our state board rep. And so I just want to give people another opportunity to grab this QR code and get attached and get the training we need. We have a hand raised from Dwayne Carr. Do you want to give us an announcement or ask a question?
No, I just have some updates from DCPS. I'm a Dwayne Carr Community Action Team member working with Sharona. And I'll also put these in the chat. But I wanted to push our DCPS Parent University resources. So it's a great resource for parents working with students on their growth and learning, of course. So I'll put that. There's not a session up just yet, but there's a great page with previous sessions that parents can go to. Also, speaking of budgets, our LSATs will be working on budgets next month. So you can visit dcpsbudget.com. And again, I'll make sure to put that in the chat. School lottery deadlines. So February 1st will be for grades 9 through 12. March 1st will be pre-K 3 to grade 8. And I'll put the My School DC website in the chat as well. And last, end of term 2 will be Friday, January 26th.
Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad to have you with us, and we appreciate you bringing updates from DCPS. And good to know you're part of Sharona's team. We know that she's a hard worker, so if you're part of her team, that means you're a hard worker too. So good, thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions, announcements that anyone would like to make before we adjourn? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming to the Ward 7 Education Council. And with that, we're going to adjourn. Please be safe, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.